The Book of Joseph, Part 1, Chapter 1, The Infant Prince. This chapter speaks of the venerable parents of Saint Joseph, the miraculous circumstances of his conception and birth, his circumcision and presentation, and his early gift of reason. By the time of Joseph of Nazareth's birth, Judea had fallen under Roman control, and the descendants of King David had lost both their royal birthright and their claim to the throne. Herod the Great, appointed king of the Jews by the Roman Senate, had usurped the throne. Joseph, the earthly father of Jesus Christ, though not according to the flesh, was a descendant of David, and thus remained the rightful heir to the throne of Judea. The Bible traces his genealogy in the Gospel of St. Matthew, which identifies his father as Jacob, a descendant of David. And Jacob begot Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom was born Jesus, who was called Christ. Matthew 1:16. Then how does one explain the genealogy given in the Gospel of St. Luke? In this account, Joseph is still a descendant of King David, but his father is not Jacob, but rather Heli. And Jesus himself was beginning about the age of 30 years, being, as it was supposed, the son of Joseph, the son of Heli. Luke 3:23. The Gospel of Matthew reveals the biological line of Joseph, while the Gospel of Luke gives that of Mary. Though Luke says, Joseph, the son of Heli, ancient usage commonly attributes someone as son when referring to son-in-law or adopted son. Under this reading, Heli is the father of Mary, the father-in-law of Joseph, and the biological grandfather of Jesus. Jeconiah's curse proves Jacob's paternity. In the book of Jeremiah, the prophet pronounces a curse on King Jeconiah, also known as Jehoiachin or Coniah. Record this man as childless, for none of his offspring shall prosper, sitting on the throne of David and ruling again in Judah. Jeremiah 22:30. Jeconiah does not appear in Luke's genealogy, Mary's lineage. Therefore, Jesus is not a biological descendant of Jeconiah. This is very important to note. Had Jesus been related by blood to Jeconiah, he would be under this curse. Therefore, he would not be the Messiah. In contrast, Matthew's genealogy, where Jacob is Joseph's biological father, includes Jeconiah as an ancestor. Since Jesus was not biologically descended from Joseph, he does not inherit the curse, yet remains the legal heir to King David's line. Saint Joseph's parents in extra-biblical texts. One notable extra-biblical source that identifies Saint Joseph's parents is the Book of the Cave of Treasures, a 6th century work traditionally attributed to Saint Ephrem the Syrian. This text presents a sweeping history of salvation spanning 5,500 years, from the creation of Adam to the ascension of Christ. The title, Cave of Treasures, carries a twofold meaning. It denotes both the book itself as a treasury of sacred history and genealogy, and the legendary cave where Adam and Eve were said to have dwelt after their expulsion from Eden. Concerning Saint Joseph's ancestry, the Cave of Treasures records the following. Mathan took to wife Sebrath, the daughter of Phinehas, and begot by her 2 sons at one conception, Jacob and Jonachar. Jacob took to wife Hadbith, the daughter of Eleazar, and begot by her Joseph. Joseph took to wife Mary, the daughter of Jonachar, of whom was born the Christ. Another influential source is the 13th century work, The Golden Legend, a celebrated compilation of saints' lives by Blessed Jacobus de Voragine. This text likewise identifies Jacob as a biological father of Saint Joseph. Joseph is the son of Jacob, and after the law, he is the son of Eli, which descended of Nathan. What has been revealed to the mystics? According to the visions of the German mystic Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich, Saint Joseph's father was in fact Jacob, a detail confirmed by other mystics, such as a servant of God, Madre Cecilia Baj, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. Joseph's grandfather, Mathan, had descended from David through Solomon. He had 2 sons, Joses and Jacob. Jacob was Joseph's father. Madre Cecilia Baj. Saint Joseph's father's name was Jacob, and his mother's name was Rachel. Both distinguished themselves by leading very holy lives. Saint Joseph's mother and siblings. The Gospels do not name Saint Joseph's mother, so one must turn to other ancient texts for a possible identification. According to the writings of the servant of God, Madre Cecilia Baj, who received revelations from our Lord Jesus during her time as abbess of the Benedictine convent of St. Peter in Montefiascone, Italy, St. Joseph's mother was named Rachel, just as the mother of the Old Testament Joseph. St. Joseph's father's name was Jacob, and his mother's name was Rachel. Both distinguished themselves by leading very holy lives. They had in common nobility of birth. Both were of the family of David. On the question of whether St. Joseph had siblings, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich records that he had 5 brothers. Most other mystics, however, affirm that Joseph was an only child. It is possible that the brothers mentioned by Emmerich were in fact cousins, relatives who either lived with Joseph's family at certain times, or with whom Joseph himself may have stayed. According to church tradition, preserved by Saint Hegesippus in the 2nd century, Cleophas, also known as Alphaeus, was a relative of Saint Joseph, sometimes referred to as his brother or cousin. Cleophas was married to Mary, the cousin of the Blessed Virgin. He is mentioned in both the Gospel of John and the Gospel of Luke. The conception and sanctification of Joseph. Before I formed thee in the womb of thy mother, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee. Jeremiah 1:5. Through the writings of the servant of God, Madre Cecilia Baj, whose works have been revered for centuries, we gained insight into the circumstances surrounding Saint Joseph's conception and birth. These events resemble those of the prophet Jeremiah and Saint John the Baptist, both of whom were sanctified in the womb and became blessings to their families. Like them, Saint Joseph was freed from the stain of original sin by God's grace after his conception, though this should not be confused with the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Madre Cecilia tells us, Joseph's father, Jacob, was born in Nazareth, whereas his mother, Rachel, was born in Bethlehem. Both were descendants of King David and lived together in Nazareth, leading very holy lives. Though they were full of virtue, God deigned to leave them childless for a time, as sorrowful as it was for them, in order that Joseph be a child obtained through prayerful entreaty. To this purpose, his parents generously bestowed alms upon the poor and for the temple in Jerusalem. They also made many pilgrimages to beg God for the desired offspring. It was not long before God rewarded Jacob and Rachel with the conception of their much prayed-for son, with signs and angelic messages announcing that the child was especially chosen and beloved by God. Madre Cecilia continues, It was on one occasion while in the temple that Joseph's mother experienced an inner conviction that God had heard her prayer. And indeed, she conceived Saint Joseph. This time, 3 unusually bright stars, surpassing one another in beauty and splendor, could be seen directly above their home. An angel came to them and revealed certain mysterious and secret facts concerning this child. And the angel said to them, This child resting beneath his mother's heart will have the happy privilege of seeing the promised Messiah and associating with him. You are to rear him with special foresight and diligence, training and instructing him in the sacred scriptures. You shall call his name Joseph, and he will be great in the sight of God. In the 17th century, the Spanish mystic Maria de Agreda was also given heavenly insights into the life of Saint Joseph. Her writings have been beloved throughout the centuries by popes and theologians, and she has since been declared venerable by the Church. She too was shown that Saint Joseph's conception was miraculous. She tells us, Joseph was to be a miracle of holiness. This marvelous holiness commenced with the formation of his body in the womb of his mother. In this, the providence of God Himself interceded, regulating the composition of his body with extreme nicety of proportion, and securing for him that evenly tempered disposition which made his body a blessed fit for the abode of an exquisite soul and well-balanced mind. He was sanctified in the womb of his mother 7 months after his conception, and the leaven of sin was destroyed in him for the whole course of his life. St. Alphonsus de Liguori and St. John Henry Newman also believed, for good reason, that St. Joseph was sanctified in his mother's womb. De Liguori tells us, when God destines anyone for a particular office, He gives him the graces that fit him for it. Among those granted, Joseph had 3 which were special to him. Firstly, that he was sanctified in his mother's womb, as were Jeremias and St. John the Baptist. Secondly, that he was at the same time confirmed in grace. And thirdly, that he was always exempt from the inclinations of concupiscence. Newman tells us, he is holy Joseph because, according to the opinion of a great number of doctors, he was sanctified even before he was born. He is holy Joseph because his office of being spouse and protector of Mary specially demanded sanctity. The birth of Joseph. As a child, I was naturally gifted, and a good soul fell to my lot, or rather, being good, I entered an undefiled body. Wisdom of Solomon 8:19-20. During this time of holy expectation, Jacob and Rachel immersed themselves in prayer, giving to the poor, and observed periods of fasting, all in thanksgiving to God for the coming of their promised son. When the day for the little prince to be born into the world finally arrived, Madre Cecilia reveals, Joseph's mother gave birth to him with ease. The tiny babe had a most angelic, venerable, and serene expression, and the mere sight of him was an occasion of spiritual stimulation for everyone. The news of the birth of this child and the unusual circumstances connected with it spread throughout Nazareth. This child was said to be a veritable angel of paradise, and all were elated. The 3 stars again appeared over the house as Joseph was being born, and were observed with astonishment. Joseph, upon opening his little eyes, directed them heavenwards, and for a while kept them fixed upon these stars, the signs God had given to announce his birth. Joseph was in the grace and friendship of God, having been previously freed of the stain of original sin. His soul's growth was derived from the graces he obtained from the divine bounty and generosity. God fashioned him according to his own heart and spirit, in order to eventually make him a worthy bridegroom for the mother of the divine word. The Circumcision and Presentation. Concerning the little prince, the scriptures do not give any account of his childhood. As with the story of his conception and birth, one must look to the divinely inspired writings of Servant of God, Madre Cecilia Baj, for details of Joseph's circumcision, his early gift of reason, and his presentation in the temple. Madre Cecilia tells us, the octave day of his birth, the parents had Joseph circumcised, and he was given the name of Joseph, which means, may the Lord give increase. Though crying at first, the infant soon became quiet, for among the many gifts which God had now bestowed upon him was the use of reason. And due to his sanctification in the womb, being freed of the stain of original sin, Joseph was already in the friendship of God. 40 days after the birth of Joseph, his parents took him to the Jerusalem temple to present him. As the priest took Joseph into his arms and presented and offered him to God, he experienced an extraordinary sensation of joy and consolation of spirit. The priest perceived how pleasing this child was in the eyes of God. During the entire ritual, Joseph's eyes were open and directed towards heaven, being completely taken up and absorbed in God. The priest revealed to them that this child was pleasing to God and was destined for great things. After hearing this, the parents gave thanks to God, their hearts profoundly touched and filled with joy. They carried Joseph home as a treasure, as a divinely conferred gift. End of chapter 1.